Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this is going to be the unit 2 of our testing video. So in this video we will be covering the UI tests. So without wasting any time, let's just get started. So for UI test, what we need to do is that we need to add some sort of tags that we can basically use to access and perform actions based on that. So we need to do that. So I'm gonna do again, let me just close all these things. Okay, and now I'm gonna go to home listing screen. So this is my listing screen, and this is the screen where I'll be adding some sort of tags that I will use to add the test on. So basically what we are gonna do, first thing is this name. So we will add a test tag to this. So you can set as test tag and define the tag. So you can say it's username as test tag. Then we have this image and this highlighted text that basically is shown once the data is available and all that. What's important here is that basically this loader dot test tag, and that is, you can say, loading indicator for this. So I added this test tag into this. Then we have this lazy raw, which basically contain these destination cards. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna add this test tag to this, and we will be using something like this, okay, as test tag. This test tag is supposed to be received here in the destination card. So you can use test tag as string, and we'll add that test tag this basically to this item, whole item, okay, dot test tag with this. Okay, so now what I did is basically I added these test tag. Other than that, if you want, you can add semantics as well. Semantics are more basically kind of properties for that can be used for two things. One is the testing. Definitely you can add it for testing. Other than that, it's also used for accessibility. Okay, so like, let's say if you want to add some sort of semantics for this, you can add that over here. And let's say like this. Okay, so now basically I added this for destination card, and this is basically a semantic for this. There are two ways. One is like, if there is some sort of accessibility, the Android device will basically say it loud for you. So one case is that. Second case is basically we can use these kind of semantics like this destination card for if not title, but something as for this testing tag like this. But yeah, these are the things that you can use. What else do we have? I think that's pretty much what we have for this screen. So what we are gonna do is that we are gonna write a test that basically checks for the screen to load, and once that is loaded, it will check for the loading, and then after the loading, the user should be shown the information such as this information along with the test, the list that's basically populated. But we allow, but for that as well, we need some sort of fake repository as well. So for this, what we need to do is that first of all, we need to get over here into the dependency section, and in the source set we need to add some sort of testing dependencies. So you can say common tests dot dependencies, and then inside that you can define the Kotlin test. You can define the Koin test for that as well, Kotlin x dot coroutine dot test. Okay, that's one thing. Other than that, we need implementation compose dot UI test. Okay, and now it basically is okay, there is another way we can use. I think this is the UI test that you can use. So let's just use this one and change it into this. so we don't use this. I guess we should be good. Sync, so that this UI test is basically loaded as per the new dependency available. And now we will be doing the same thing like we did for the other one. We have this common test, and then inside that, let's just create a package and call that, since we want it to do it in the UI part, so you can say UI, and then you create another package and call it listing. And then inside that, we have this home screen listing file. So let me just copy that file, and then we will be creating a new Kotlin class and call it test. Okay, so now we have this test available, and we'll be using this test like this specifically for running the UI test, but we need to do some of the basic stuff. Other than that, we will also be needing a couple more things. For example, we will be creating one more package called as fake for the fake repositories and all. And over there we also need something similar like we did for our presentation section. If we go over there, common test fake, we have this fake listing and cache repository. These are the two elements that we'll need over here as well. Okay, now you can see we have this fake repository and we have fake listing and fake all. Basically we will be using this for creation of the view model once again, like we did for the for these in this section. Okay, so now what we are gonna do is that we are gonna create a composable over here and call that function screen under test. Okay, and now inside that we will be passing the view model as travel listing view model. Okay, and along with that, now inside that, if we go over here into the home listing screen, what it needs, it require this backstack entry that comes from from the app. If we get over here, we have this, not here, sorry. So if we go over here in the nav routes, you can see this backstack is basically something like this, which basically define what we need to do, what should be the starting point and all these kind of things, right? So it's basically similar thing that we will be needing in the test section as well, but it will not be something like that. So we will just get rid of the rest of the files or rest of the screens that we have, and we'll just keep the one that's basically needed. So you can see we don't need the login sign up for this. Same goes for the other two that we have. So we'll just get rid of that and keep only one. Now we have this backstack ready, and now we can say we create this screen. So basically this is my section for this. Other than that, we will be creating another function, and let's call that private function build view model. Now you can say listing repo, or let's just use it default way and call that it will be returning travel listing view model for us. And now what it's gonna do is that it's gonna return travel listing view model. Okay, and now we need two use cases. One is basically get all listing use case. Okay, and then it should have fake listing repository. Okay, and same goes for remove all token use case. That should get fake cache repository. So now once you do that, you will have this view model ready. Now over here, what you'll do is that we'll create the tests. Okay, so now what we need to do is that we will be creating a test like this, and now create function load listing successfully. And now over here you can say compose, sorry, that's going to be run compose UI test. over here, and this is going to basically ask that is basically an experimental, so you can add that experimental test API either to this section or maybe add it to the class level so that the other test can also use that. And now inside this test, what you need to do is that you first create that view model for yourself, and then you basically call that screen under test. That's basically going to be creating this composable that handles this nav backstack and also the home listing for you. And after that you have this screen under test screen that's basically shown. Now if you remember, we have added some tags and some information for this on top of it. I think there's just one thing I believe we need to do, and for this fake repository. So let's just do one more thing and create wall fake repository like this, and rather than using this, you will pass it to like this way. Okay, now we can do is that you can say get all listing is equals to fake listing, so that we have you can say result dot success fake listing. Come on, list of fake listing. Okay, and now if inside that fake listing, that you have this listing title as this. Okay, so now we will be using this title for this, and we'll also be added some more information into the screen that we wanted to to check. For example, in the title we added this surname, so we can look for this test tag surname username, and we can also look for this tag indicator that's basically shown along with this listing card. So like these information we can basically search for. Okay, and so what do we do? Let's just start writing the tests. Now basically once you set this content, it will basically be waiting, like we'll wait for that to the screen to get idle, like the tree to be drawn. So these tests basically are called UI tests, but they are being run on JVM through the semantic tree of this, rather than the composition tree of this, because they doesn't run on emulator. They are just in the memory. It basically looks into the tree and verify if the things are basically populated. So these are like, it's much faster this way. Okay, so now over here, once the screen is available, now what we need to do is that we can find the nodes with either tag or with text or with content description. So it's totally up to you. So like if you are trying for content description, you can look for the semantics that you added. If you're looking for a node with tag, you can find it through tags. If you want to search for text, you can search for text as well. Okay, so now what we can do, we can say on node with text as this, and you can say assert is displayed. So basically we want this text to be displayed. Okay, and then you can also search for something on node with tag, and for tag you can also look for something where you have added a tag. So like if I go to the home listing screen, you will see that in the description, or like in this destination card, what I do is that I add this index. So for index 0 we should get something. So I'm gonna do something as this dot assert is displayed. This is again for the other section, and we also have this card, this basically for the title. So you can use something as this for content description. So like over here you can say on node with text like this, and the title is going to be coming from the fake repository, which is the title this. So you can add something into this. It is displayed, and one more thing we have, and that is basically the search bar that we have. this loading indicator that we have a test tag for. So we can check for something on node with tag assert is not displayed. So like these are the values that we want to check. Now basically there's just one more thing we need to do before we can run this, and that is basically to add the get by name. Okay, so we already have that, sorry. So we need this extra, which is this one, sorry. We need to check it over here. So now over here you will see we don't have the get name, get by name, and then over here you can define the Android test device, where basically you will be adding these along with, you can add this UI test, and also there is just one more thing that I think we need, and that is basically the UI test manifest. Okay, now you add that, sync it. Okay, so in the Android library over here, we don't have the config for this, for example, like this configuration that we need. So we need to add that inside this as well, like this. Now we'll try to sync that. This time once we sync it, hopefully we will be able to build this. Now yes, you can see now the stuff is done, and now we will be trying to run this listing on you can run it on simulator first to see if it works. So if it works, this means that the UI test, you can like create these UI tests by verifying these changes, if it basically shows all these things to you. Okay, so it says failed, and it says exactly one node but could not find a node that is loading indicator. So this is the problem, I think, since it's basically shown when it's loading, before it's not shown. So that's why it could be the reason that it's not available. Let's just try once again with this, removing this, and okay, so now it says that destination card for is not available, and that could be on node with text. No, it's not with text, it's on node with content description. So this could be the reason for this failure. So let's just run this. Since it was semantic, so we should make sure that we use the proper access for that. And now you can see the test ran, and you can also run this for Android as well, and it will work as expected. Although it's basically same since it's a common code, but still you can use that. And now you can see the Android worked as well, right? So this means that the Compose UI tests are working. You can add this for other screens that you have as well. Let's say for the edge error cases where you have other error flows. For that case, you can go over here to your, where is my home listing screen, and then this is the error dialog where you can add some tags into these. This is a destination card. Where's my error card? So now this is my error screen, which has these kind of issues, message failed to load listing and all kinds. So let's say if we try this one, this is again like very interesting. So now you can see we have this, and what I need to do is that I need to create one more test. So let me just copy paste the same flow, but instead of so load listing failed, and now instead of using this, what we are going to do is that I'm going to say failure, and inside that you can call it app error dot server error. Okay, so now we got this basically error inside that. And now what happens is that instead of looking for all these things, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna look for or find the message that says fail to load listing. This means that now it will check if there is basically any sort of text that basically says fail to load listing. In case of error, then it successfully basically it means that it's basically successfully run. So now when I run this test, you will see that it will also be able to find that specific section, because now we are sending a error message through that, right? Okay, so now we have this. Now let's say if I want to use Koin for this, right? Let's say if I want to add Koin into this, what should I do? First thing, build the common test. Okay, it's not there, it's presentation, this one. So now over here in the common test, you can also add the implementation for Koin. So you can say libs koin.test. Okay, so now the Koin test is there, and now we need to go over here into this section, and what we'll do is that we'll create wall test module is equals to module, and then over here you can define these, listing repository import for this. You also need to define a single for cache repository as well. Fake cache repository, and you can define that cache repository like this. Okay, now you have all these things, and now you can create before test setup, start Koin modules, and then it should take test modules like this, and same goes for, sorry, not that, after, and then tear down with stop Koin. So basically you can do the same approach here as well. And now for view model, you can say function get VM is equals to get Koin dot get. Okay, something like this, or you can define it as travel listing view model over here. And now instead of building this view model like this, what you can do is that you can say get VM, same goes for get VM. Okay, now just one thing we need to do, that is to basically define that this is a Koin test as well, so that this file can basically work as Koin. So now we have this get VM that will be used for the view model to get that, and that will be passed into this. Same goes for this one. So we are good now. Now let's just try once again and see if this works. Okay, now hopefully this works without any issue. And in this way, basically I showed you like there are two ways to do it. One is to manually create these objects, second is to basically use it. Okay, says travel listing view model on scope. Okay, yes, I think it's complaining correct. We haven't created that view model here, so that's why it's complaining. Now let's just try running it again with iOS first. And now you can see the test ran successfully, and this was basically similar to what we did for the rest one, but this time I basically first showed you that how you can manually handle it, and then also how you can leverage Koin into this as well. So this was basically a bit about how you can create UI test for Compose UI test, not UI test, Compose UI test for this for your project. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to run some end-to-end tests. Now for end-to-end test, what you need is that you need to run it on a device, like it either need a simulator for this or like emulator for this, and also you need your server to run, because this time it will actually be communicating with your server. Okay, so how do we do that? I'll show you how you can do that. So for the first thing that I'm gonna do for this one is that I'll be creating iOS test first, and then we'll basically create the Android specific one. So for creating the iOS test, what you need to do is that you need to open your project for your iOS into your in your Xcode. And once you have all these things, what you need to do is that you need to go over here into the iOS app, then you go to iOS target, and in the bottom you have this plus sign. So you click on this plus sign, and over here you can find UI testing bundle. So this is the testing bundle that you will be using, and you will add that, create this Travenor's product name and all these things, just finish it. So once you finish that, you will see that now inside in the right side you have these two files. Basically these are some tests, so you can get rid of one of them, right? I'm just gonna get rid of one of them, and we'll keep the rest like the other one, but we'll clean it up. We'll not be using the other files. So now we have this Travenor CMP UI test for with us, and you can create other files as well and add it to them. Now over here I'm going to create new file, and let's call that home listing flow. Okay, test home listing, you can say e2 e test. So now I have basically created this file, and this is again basically going to be a simple class that we have. So create this. Now this is basically in Swift, so don't worry if you are not aware of Swift. It's like very basic. If you know Kotlin, it's pretty similar to that, and it's basically will be using very basic functionality, not much. So you'll just have to you don't just confuse it. Okay, so now you can say final class home listing e2 e test, and this is going to extend, it's going to extend this XC test case. Okay, this is my XT test case. Okay, now this is going to be like an end-to-end test. So what you need to do is that you need to properly log in and do all those things for yourself. Okay, so just one more thing we need here is that to import that file. So now we'll be doing all these things like logging in and all that. So for that you can use private let username is equals to customer1 at travenor.com, and private let password is equals to password. And now it's basically pretty similar to what we have in for Kotlin test, which is basically before test or something. So over here what you can do, you can create a function and call that as override function, and that is going to be setup with error, and it throws. So basically this is basically a setup one, and then we have another function tear down with error, and it's similar to what we have for this. Oh, it should be funk, not fun, sorry. Okay, so now in the setup what we need to do is that we need to do the very basic, for before each test, what do you want to log in, because that is something we'll be doing. And then after the login, during the login, you also need to do some sort of setting properties and all that, and you need to run the application and all that. Okay, so now first thing first, I'm gonna say private var app as XCUI application. Okay, now over here you can say continue after failure, you can say no. If it's fail, we don't continue it. Okay, and now app should equals to XCUI application, log that. Second thing is that you can say app dot launch. So basically you can launch the app. And last one, you can say try login. So basically this function is something that we would like to write here. Another thing would be to, if basically tear down, you can say terminate and then app is equals to null. Okay, so now we did that. Basically what we did is that when the test runs, we will be terminating the app and we'll basically finish it. Now what we need to do is that we need to create a function that's basically called login. Okay, and it should also throw an error in case basically it fails. Now this is basically pretty similar to, you know, how we did the UI test, like, you know, finding the nodes and then, you know, based on those nodes we basically apply. So first thing we need to do is that we need to add some tags to this. Okay, how do we do that? We need to go to the login screen over here. And now inside this login screen, you see we have these values, this Dragonauts text field. First thing, you set the tag, you can say test tag, and you can say login email. Okay, or I think let's use this. And for this one, you can say login password. So we have login email, login password, and in the button over here that says test tag, that is going to be login button. So now we have these three. What we need to do is that we need to add email into this field, password into this field, and when these values are added, we'll basically click on that and we'll wait for the next step. So this is the first initial step that we want to do here, right? So we go back to our login section, and now over here, okay, so now there's one more thing that I'm going to create. I'm going to create another function and call that an element, and we'll be using with tag as string, and it should return xcui element. And over here you can say app dot desc and descendant, and then define, you know, the matching criteria for that. So you can say anything that matches with this tag. So you can say matching, and then we'll basically define that predicate for this. You're going to identifier as tag, and whatever you got as first, you basically get that to us. Okay, so what we did is basically we look for all the elements that are available in the app, like, or whatever it's on the screen, and that matches any, like, it doesn't matter what kind of element it is, any kind of element that basically matches the identifier that we pass, the tag one. Okay, and now for login, what we do, we say let email is equals to element, and now this tag needs to be passed. So you define that tag into this. Now this means that if there is any sort of, you know, element with this email, now you can say xct assert true. This means that email dot wait for existence, and you can set the timeout. So let's say you wait for 5 seconds for this to be shown. And also you can define an error for this. So you can say email field not found. So basically what happens is that it verify if this element is available. If not, we just basically set an error. Now next step is basically to find the password. So now for password, you can say login password, and you do the same thing you did for emails, but this time it's going to be pass. Now you got these two, but before all these, you can do is that you can say tap. First we click on that item, and once we click on that item, we basically add the text into it. So you can say type text, and then over here inside this you can define the username. So now what happens is basically it will add the username into this. Now you do the same thing for pass. So you can say pass dot tab, then you say sorry, pass dot type text, say password into this. So these are the two values that are done. Next up, we look for a button. So you can say let login button is equals to element with tag, and we define that login button. If I'm not wrong, this is the button. Yeah. So we look for that login button, and then from there you say you need to verify. You can say password field not found, so you can just use the same thing for this login button. You can find that button not found for this case. If it's available, we say we login dot tap, which means now it will be logging you in. So now we are going to write some tests for this, and let's just call this function show detail screen expected content. And now inside that, what we're gonna do is that the login is already there. So basically first thing first that happens is basically will be the login. And after the logging, what we need to do is that we need to wait for the loading or for the screens to basically give me some sort of information. Okay, now over here, what we can say card is equals to element. And now over here, so you define that, element that we want. Second thing we need to do is that you say xc assert true. That is basically supposed to be card dot wait. What's this basically? Let card. Sorry for being a bit Kotlin, specific. But yeah, no first item available here. Now that's one. Second thing is that what do we need is that now once that is available, you can say card dot tap, which means now once user click on that, user should be navigated to the next screen. And what is the next screen? It's the details screen. So for that, what we gonna do, we get over here, go to the details screen over here. First thing first is this section where we have the header. Okay, I think that's the header that we have. So I'm gonna add this test tag into this and add this detail header 1. Second thing is going to be the book now button that we have over here in the bottom. So I'm gonna add a test tag is to book now button. So these are the two tags that I will be using. Now we go back over here, and now once we click on that, the next step is going to be let header is equals to element. That is going to be not book now button, instead it's going to be details header, and you see xct assert true. Okay, and now you can say header dot wait for existence. For that, no details available. Okay, and now once that header is available, what we can do is that you can say app dot swipe up, so basically I'm just swiping up if in case basically it's basically covering something. And now the next step is basically to find let button is equals to element with tag, that's book now button. Now we are going to say xct assert true, and this is going to be button dot wait for existence. Again, I'm gonna go for 10. No pay now button available. Okay, and now the next step would be to say button dot tap. So once we click on that button, we go to the checkout screen. Now over here, what we can do is that you can go checkout screen, and in the checkout screen, I'm not doing much, but instead what we can do is that we can add just a test tag to the screen saying uh, test tag, and call that trip dates card. Or now over here you can go for the trip dates section. Where's my checkout content? This is checkout header, and this is number of guests. This is my trip dates, so go to the trip dates, and this is the card. Over here you can say test tag like this. Come on. Okay, now we have this card over here available. And getting over here, now once that button is tapped, what we need to do, we're gonna wait, find for like another button, and that is going to be dates card is equals to element with this, and then we wait for the card. So basically this is something that you can say that we have. So now what I did is basically we created a test. What it does is first it's try to log in, and after the login what it will do is that it will be doing this stuff. What we do is that we press command U to see if things work. And now we have these two clones of iOS 16, and now we'll see if these actually run the code for us. Let me just delete this file. Could this be the problem for this? Okay, just one thing that we need to make sure, and that is basically to start the function with test. That's something I was missing. And now once you do that, you should be able to run this test on simulators. Okay, so I have these simulators available with me. Let's wait for the build to succeed. Once the build is succeed, we'll wait for the test to run. Okay, and now you can see it runs. Okay, so it says unauthorized, and this means that the test will fail. And I think I know the reason for this unauthorized issue, and that is basically if we go to our nav routes over here, what we do is that we check this user token to be null. Okay, and with the recent changes in the previous video, we are now passing like returning an empty string for user token. So instead what you can do, you can say is not empty, or you can say is null or blank. So you can say if not null or blank, then we'll basically be showing listing, else we'll go to the routing. And now we get back over here and rebuild this so that we can get the tests. Okay, once again the emulator ran successfully. Now we are on the login screen. You can see now the customer values was entered, password was entered, sign in was successfully done. And now you can see the bookings done as well. And you can do the rest, like you can keep on adding more and more. So basically that's what we did. We basically added this. Just one thing I was missing, and that was this test prefix that needs to be added. And you can add further more flows into this as well. For example, for the trips card, you can select the first element. So for adding that, you can add the tags into there, and then over here you can just do the same pattern, select the tap, and then it will add that. And along with that, you just keep on adding more functionality, and it will basically keep on adding. You can do like end to end till basically the booking is done. So basically this was something for Android, sorry, for iOS. And now the next step would be to write something similar for our Android app over here. So like over here, you can see we have this Android test section where we have this section which basically just do some basic stuff. For example, check the package name of the app. And now over here, you can just create a Kotlin class and you can say home listing E2E test. Okay, and that is basically just the basic setup for you. Now over here, you can say get rule, and that is going to be wall compose rule, compose test rule, create Android compose rule like this, and then you define this main activity, which is basically this part. Okay, now you can just create a test, create a function, and call this test home screen listing to details. Okay, now over here you have just this basic information, and now what we need to do is that you can just say, now you hear compose test rule wait for idle. That is basically first thing when you load that, and then you will be saying compose test rule on node with tag, and this is basically again on node with tag. Okay, you can do something like this, stay something wall email wall password. This is for basically for login. So you can go over here to your login screen. Where's my login screen? This is my login screen, and I have these tags. One is for login email, so that is for login email, that is for login password. And now also we need to define some some of the hard-coded values. Now over here you can say wall, or you can say private wall email is equals to customer1 at travnor.com, private wall password is equals to password 123. So basically we have these two values, and now we have all these information. You can basically make sure email dot assert is displayed for email, and then you can say email dot perform click on that, and then you can say email dot, so over here you can say perform text input and say email. So you can say email text password text, so you can say email text, that's basically added to this. And now we will be doing again similar for this password dot assert is displayed, then you can say perform click input. Now after this you need a button, so you can say login button assert is displayed and perform login click. And now you can again wait for compose test rule dot wait for idle, so that basically it goes to the next screen. And then after that, going to the next screen, you can just say on item is it displayed, performing click, again wait for that idle, so that all the navigation and all that is done. Now we need to verify that tag is there, and also you can say compose test rule on node with tag pay button. I think it's not pay bust button. Home listing screen, travel listing detail, it should be checkout screen. It's detail screen. So now it has this button, book now button, and we get over here into this book now button. Assert is displayed, you will say wall button is equals to this, and then you can say compose, sorry, not compose. Instead, you can say button dot assert is displayed, and then say button dot perform click. Lastly, you will say wall booking screen assert is displayed. I think it's not booking screen. Instead, for checkout screen, we have this trip dates card. So you will search for this trip card and you will make sure that you have this. You can also say compose test rule dot wait for idle. So basically it's just similar to what we had for the for the compose test, but it's a bit different. That basically we have this compose test rule which basically create this activity for us and loads it. And now we'll run it and see if basically this test is actually working. Okay, now you can see the test is running. Okay, it says the test is not displayed. So that was the problem. This first item that we had was not available, and I think the reason for that is that basically there's a loader for this. So now since basically it's like this item comes after the loading screen, so rather than this, what we can do is over here you can say compose test rule wait until at least one exists. So you can say has test tag, and over here you can just add this section. So basically what happens is that it will wait until this item is available, and once that item is available we'll be able to like basically search for these kind of things. For detail screen, I think you can do the same thing as well. You can get over here and make sure that this item is available before we can just click. And now let's just try running again. This time I think hopefully it will work. So okay, it got executed, email password was added, we got our first item. Okay, no, this should be available. Am I missing something? That's my home listing screen, listing card 0, and E2E test says listing item, so that's why it's causing the problem. Now we'll wait again and we'll try once again. Okay, sorry. Now just do one again. So basically I was just using a wrong tag for this. Okay, we got here, we got that information, got into a details screen, and after the details screen it says that the details screen is not displayed, and the reason is pretty similar. We need to make sure to wait for that. So just one line above, so that basically the screen is basically loaded. Okay, looks like again could be some problem with the tag. Yes, now we need to go to the details screen, and if we go to the header, it should be details header or something if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it's details header. Now we change that to from details screen to details header, and I think try once again. So basically this is just important that you basically use proper test tags for these, or else you'll have to go just like I do. So now you can see basically the test successfully ran on Android, and you can also run the same test, like pretty similar test on iOS as well. And yeah, I think that's pretty much for this. Like you can add the other flows as well for like some sort of errors and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so there's just one more problem with iOS, and that is basically when you know run the code next time after running one time, it basically lands here, which means that now basically you'll not be able to run the will not be able to basically, like the test will fail. Okay, which means now the test will fail for you, and we need to fix that. So basically to get that fix, what we need to do is that we need to set like clear our cache. So you can create a function and call that clear cache data. Okay, and now this is basically going to be simple as accessing the file, the database file, and clearing that. So you can say guard let docs is equals to file manager dot default dot urls, and now over here you need to define the document directory, and now over here this is going to be the domain mask that you have. So user domain mask for this. Okay, and now over here is basically, if it's null, you can just say return. Okay, now the next step would be to initializer for the conditional bring must have an optional type URL. First it should be docs. I think the rest is fine. Okay, now you can say let store file is equals to docs dot appending path component, and now over here we define that you are like the file name. So I'm just gonna get that file name over here into this, and now we will be using is try file manager default dot remove at path, and then over here you can just find that, remove that file. Sorry, not at path, it should be at, and then we remove that file. Okay, now this is something we have. One more thing we need to do is to basically create an init file of the init function, and now inside this init function what we'll do is that we will be using if process info dot arguments dot contains, and over here you can say clear data as a parameter. What you can do is that you can call that functionality. Okay, I think we need to make sure one more thing, then I think it should get fixed. Yeah, so this was the problem. We were supposed to get that first URL, first path that's available for this, and now we have this. Okay, now we need to pass this from the test section. So if we go over here into our e2e test file, inside this section you will basically pass this parameter as launch argument clear data, and now once you run this you will be able to see that this test will successfully run. Now you can see basically the test is working fine, and that was basically it. So that's it basically for this this one extra thing that we had, that we need to basically clear the cache. Okay, so that was for iOS, and now for Android what you need to do is that we'll get over here in the main activity, and now you can say function reset data like this. You can say application context dot cache directory dot delete recursively, and this reset data function should only be available from the e2e test. So like you can call that from here using compose test rule dot activity dot reset data, and you should also clear it after the test, and over here you can devise something as something like we clear that as well. Now when you run this you should be able to run it, and then reset the data after the test is run, executed as well. Now you will see the test run properly, everything is good, We can rerun the test and it will also be executing again the same way that it was before. Right. Perfect. So that's basically how you can reset that data so that you don't have to, uh, manually reset everything. Okay, so basically that's pretty much it for the instrumentation test flows for Android and iOS. So basically in this whole testing flows, what we covered is that we wrote some unit test, we mocked the backend with basically custom responses for the data module, and then for the compose we wrote the compose app, the common code. We basically wrote some sort of compose UI test that runs on a on a JVM in a in memory composition tree as and after that in last we basically wrote some UI test or like end-to-end test. For Android it's called instrumentation test, and for iOS they are basically XC test cases. So what we did is basically we just add some tags to the code base that's commonly used, and based on that we basically executed that flow. So I think that's pretty much it for this. I hope you understood how you can write test in this, and I hope to see you in the next video. So till then, happy coding. Bye bye. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't forget any update. If you got any question, you can join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Also, for quick updates and tips, you can follow me on Instagram. Until next time, keep learning, keep developing. Bye.